This video will show you in AP Stats how to create a scatter plot and draw one and have one display on the TI83. Again, you're never going to be asked on the AP test to draw an integrate one. You may be asked to make a sketch of one. It really does come in handy to know how to draw one, and we'll talk about in the next video about finding the correlation. We'll also talk about drawing the line of best fit. We'll get all that. So as far as drawing a scatter plot. All right, so here's some data. And that's the data we want to create a scatter plot for. I just drew a simple scatter plot by hand, which of course you all could do. I want to have the calculator make that scatter plot. That's the goal. So here's how we do this. First, we actually, that's not first, this is first. First, we have to go to the lists where we can enter data into the calculator. So to enter the lists, hit the button that turns your calculator on, hit the button that says stat, which just says stat, and then just hit enter. It should take you to where some lists are. L1, L2, L3. If you scroll over, I think you should have L4, L5, L6. I think these calculators are kind of preloaded with space for 6 lists. So that's where the lists are. And we're going to put our data in L1 and L2, but really you could put it anywhere as long as you tell the calculator the right thing as far as where the data is. So that's how to get to the list. Now, your calculator might have, like my calculator has some old unneeded data. Like that's not the right data. I need to get rid of that data so I can put in my new data. Please listen carefully because it's easy to accidentally, we want to clear the list. We don't want to delete the list. That gets rid of, like the entire list disappears, including the title. We don't want that. So in order to clear this data, you could just do one piece of data at a time, hit delete, 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 delete. These lists only have like 6 numbers each. But if they were long, we don't have to do that. To clear an entire list, not to delete it, but to clear it, you want to scroll up so that the actual list name, like L1, is highlighted. See, the L1 is highlighted right there. And with L1 highlighted, then hit the clear button, not to delete, clear, and then enter. Now you'll notice my L1 is blank now that I hit clear and enter. I'm going to do the same thing to L2. Go over to the L2 is highlighted. Again, the L2 is highlighted there. Not the first number in the L2, but the L2. And then I'm going to hit clear, enter. Clear, enter. Okay. Now I have 2 empty lists. Now, again, I want to create a scatter plot. Now I'm going to put the data that I want into L1 and L2. The X is into L1, the Y is into L2. I will go back to my other list here. So there's my data. So in L1, I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the X values. So in L1, I am typing 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter, 4, enter, 5, enter. There's my L1, says L1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in L2, I'm going to type in 70, enter, 59, enter, 68, enter, 41, enter, and 11, enter. So there's my L1 and L2. I've got the data. Now, if I just hit graph, it does not show a scatter plot. We got to fix that. So it does not show a scatter plot. Now, the question is, why not? Well, first of all, it looks like I have a line there. So depending on who used this last, you might have something in y equals. You might be graphing lines or parabolas. So first, let's get rid of anything we have there. So this says clear any unwanted equations from y equals. So I'm going to go to y equals, my y equals. I just happen to have something there from who knows when. I'm going to clear the list. Now I've got nothing in my y equals. Makes there's nothing down there. No, my y equals are clear. Okay. Now when I hit graph, it still does not show my scatter plot. I need to do 2 things. First, you actually need to tell the calculator, hey, I want to create a scatter plot. So now we are starting at this line right here. To tell the calculator to make a scatter plot. So this will do a lot. So go through this slowly, and you have to go back and do it again because we can change data and do this again. It says go to second and then stat plot and then enter. So the first button, the second button, you know where that is. The stat plot button is actually above the y equals button. So second stat plot. When you hit second stat plot, it looks like this. Stat plots 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hit enter. That just goes into plot 1. We have enough spot here for plots 1 and 2 and 3 or 4. We'll never really use more than 1 at a time. So we'll probably just always use plot 1. So I hit second stat plot enter. That got me into plot 1. Now you'll notice that the off is highlighted, but I want to turn that stat plot on. You notice that my on is flashing. I need to hit enter so that on is highlighted. So here's this instruction right here. It says turn it on. So I will do that. I'm going to hit enter. Now you'll notice not only is it flashing, but it's the one that is bold. So now that I've turned stat plot 1 on. Now you'll notice where it says type, I've got 6 options. And the first one is a scatter plot. The second one is a line graph. The third one is a histogram. The fourth and fifth are box plots. The sixth is, I forget what the sixth is, some kind of, I think it's actually a normal, we don't need it. But the first one is a stat plot. That's why. The first one is a scatter plot, which is probably already highlighted kind of by default, depending on who chose what last. So I'm just going to hit enter, which chooses plot 1, which mine was already chosen as a scatter plot. Now you notice it says X list and Y list. And my calculator says L1 and L2. You have to tell the calculator where do you have the data. So in case your data is in L3 and L4, you could have told it to do L3 and L4. In case you need to change that, you can look above the numbers, like above the 4, it says L4, and above the 5, it says L5. So if you were to need to change those, that's where they are. Mine already said X list and Y list were L1 and L2. And then under mark, you've got either a square, a plus sign, or a dot. In reality, who cares what they look like? I picked up the square just because it's bigger. The dots are hard to see on my calculator, so it doesn't matter. All right, so now I chose the calculator. I told the calculator that I want to make a scatter plot. I told it where I picked scatter plot. I told it where the data was. Now I hit graph. Still no scatter plot. Yeah, we're still going to figure out why. 2 reasons. 1, we still haven't told the calculator to show us the data. And you'll notice that when you hit like that, that goes from -10 to 10, and -10 to 10. My data goes up to like 70 and 50. So you have to zoom out a little bit. There's an easier way. So in order to do that, hit the button that says zoom on the calculator. Now I'll remind you that choice number 6, which is zoom standard, which is not the one we want, that does this -10 to 10 and -10 to 10 x's and y, which is not good for this. But if you go back to the zoom menu, if you scroll down to, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 0, it is zoom stat. On mine, it's a 9, number 9, zoom stat. If you hit enter on zoom stat, sure enough, there is my scatter plot. And that picture, at least, now you notice the axes don't show very well. We can fix that. That's not that important. But if I go back to my picture, like there's the picture that I drew by hand. Here's the picture on the scatter plot. It certainly looks close. So that is how to create a scatter plot on a TI83. So make sure you're able to do that. Thanks. See ya.